3 a.m. A child stops breathing. No doctors on the floor. Sarah had two choices: follow protocol and watch him die, or break the rules and save him. She chose to save him. It cost her everything, until it didn't. If this story touches your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in doing what's right, even when it's hard. Sarah Chen had been working the night shift at St. Mary's General Hospital for 8 years. At 34, she had seen it all: overdoses, heart attacks, accidents that arrived with sirens wailing. But nothing had prepared her for this night. The pediatric ward was quiet. Room 314 housed 7-year-old Marcus Williams, admitted 3 days ago with severe pneumonia. His mother, Diana, hadn't left his side. Sarah checked Marcus's chart during her rounds. Temperature, 99.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Oxygen saturation, 94%. Not perfect, but manageable. At 2:47 a.m., the alarm from room 314 pierced the silence. Sarah ran. Marcus was in distress. His body was rigid, lips turning blue, harsh breathing filling the room. Diana was pressing the call button repeatedly. Sarah checked Marcus's oxygen levels. 87%. Dropping fast. She adjusted his oxygen mask, turned up the flow, but his saturation continued plummeting. 83%. 79%. 75%. She pressed the emergency button to page the on-call physician. Minutes crawled by. Marcus's breathing became more labored, oxygen saturation dropping to 71%. No response. Dr. Henderson was 3 floors down dealing with a multi-car accident. The other pediatrician was in surgery with complications. Sarah looked at Marcus. His oxygen saturation was now 68%. At this level, brain damage became real. Below 60%, organs would start shutting down. Protocol was clear. Nurses could not administer medications without physician authorization. Emergency medications required 2 signatures: doctor's order and pharmacy verification. But Marcus didn't have time for protocol. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She unlocked the emergency medication cabinet with her supervisor's code, memorized after years of night shifts when emergencies couldn't wait. She drew up albuterol and corticosteroids to open Marcus's airways. She administered the medications through his 4, then positioned him to clear his airways. For 30 seconds, nothing changed. Then gradually, his harsh breathing eased. Oxygen saturation climbed. 72%, 76%, 81%. Marcus's eyes fluttered open. Color returned to his lips. Diana burst into tears, grabbing Sarah's hands. Dr. Henderson appeared 20 minutes later, scrubs bloodstained. He saw Marcus stable, breathing normally, then the empty medication vials. Sarah met his gaze. No one had authorized the medications. She had made the call alone. Dr. Henderson's expression darkened. She had violated every protocol. Sarah didn't argue. She knew the rules. She also knew Marcus would have suffered brain damage or death if she had waited. By morning, Sarah was called to the administrator's office. Margaret Hoffman sat with Sarah's personnel file open. 8 years of exemplary service. No disciplinary actions. Commendations from patients and colleagues. And then this. Margaret explained the gravity. Immediate termination. Sarah looked at the morning sun. Sometimes being right wasn't the same as being legal. She became a nurse to save lives, not follow procedures while children died. Margaret's expression didn't soften. Sarah was terminated, effective immediately. Sarah cleaned out her locker. 8 years fit into a single cardboard box. Walking through the pediatric ward one last time, she passed room 314. Marcus was coloring while his mother read to him. Breathing normally, cheeks pink with health. It was worth it. The next 6 months were brutal. Finding jobs proved impossible. Word traveled fast about the nurse who violated protocol. She worked as a home health aide, cleaned houses on weekends. But every night, she thought about Marcus breathing normally and knew she had made the right choice. Meanwhile, Dr. James Williams was having his most successful year. The cardiac surgeon had been offered chief of staff at St. Mary's General Hospital, where his son Marcus had been treated 6 months earlier. James remembered that night vividly. He was in Chicago at a conference when Diana called in tears. Marcus was admitted with pneumonia but responding well. Then the second call. Marcus had taken a turn for the worse. But by the time James reached the airport, Diana called again. Marcus was stable. A nurse had administered emergency medications that saved his life. James never got the nurse's name. He only knew someone at St. Mary's had broken protocol to save his child. Reviewing personnel files as the new chief of staff, one case caught his attention. A nurse terminated for administering unauthorized medications to a pediatric patient with respiratory distress. The date matched Marcus's crisis exactly. James called Diana. She remembered the nurse, Sarah Chen, an angel who saved Marcus's life when no doctors were available. Diana heard she was fired for breaking rules to save their son. James immediately called HR for Sarah Chen's information. The file showed an exemplary nurse with 8 years of perfect service, terminated for choosing a child's life over hospital protocol. Sarah was folding laundry when her phone rang. Dr. James Williams introduced himself as the new chief of staff at St. Mary's. He believed she had saved his son's life 6 months ago. Sarah's breath caught. James had reviewed her case and spoken with his wife. He wanted to offer her a position at St. Mary's, director of emergency nursing. Sarah couldn't speak. Marcus was alive because she chose his life over her career. Now he was choosing to give her the career she deserved. Sarah's return met mixed reactions. Some whispered about favoritism. The night shift nurses welcomed her back with quiet relief. Margaret Hoffman found herself working with someone she had deemed unemployable. But James made Sarah's position non-negotiable. Sometimes, the most valuable employees were willing to break bad rules to uphold good principles. Sarah's first day began with a tour of the newly renovated pediatric emergency unit. James pointed out improvements, faster response systems, additional monitoring, streamlined protocols for emergency medication. These changes were inspired by Marcus's case. They created procedures allowing nurses to act quickly in life-threatening situations while maintaining safeguards. They paused outside room 314. Sarah remembered that night, the alarm, panic, impossible choice between rules and life. James asked if she ever regretted what she did. Sarah thought about 6 months of unemployment, financial struggle. Then about Marcus, alive and healthy. Never. She would do it again tomorrow. James smiled. That was exactly why she was there. Sarah's story spread through the hospital. Nurses who had been afraid to act decisively found new confidence. Emergency protocols were revised. Patient outcomes improved. The real measure of Sarah's impact came 6 months later. Marcus Williams walked into the pediatric ward for a checkup. Now 8 and perfectly healthy, he spotted Sarah and ran to her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, recognizing the nurse who helped him breathe. Sarah knelt down, surprised he remembered. Marcus explained his daddy told him she broke rules to save him. His father said sometimes breaking rules was brave. Sarah looked at James, watching with tears. Diana stood beside him, mouthing thank you. Sarah told Marcus his daddy was right. But having courage to do what's right even when it costs everything, that was even braver. Marcus nodded solemnly, like she had done for him. As the Williams family left, James paused at Sarah's desk. He had been thinking about that night. About her choice. She had saved more than Marcus's life. She reminded him why he became a doctor. It wasn't about following procedures perfectly. It was about preserving life and taking risks others wouldn't take. Sarah smiled. She thought he would have made the same choice. James hoped so. But he was grateful he would never have to find out, because she was there when it mattered. 5 years later, Sarah Chen was named Nurse of the Year. In her acceptance speech, she told Marcus's story. Healthcare wasn't just about following protocols. It was about remembering that behind every rule, there was a human being who needed help. In the audience, Marcus Williams, now 13 and dreaming of becoming a doctor, listened with pride. His parents held hands, thinking about the night when one nurse's brave decision gave them countless more nights with their son. The rule she had broken her, temporarily. But the life she had saved her right back, in ways she never could have imagined. Sarah's story reminds us that courage isn't about having no fear. It's about choosing love over fear, action over inaction, and sometimes, doing what's right over doing what's easy. Sarah Chen chose to be human first, and a rule follower second. Because of that choice, a little boy grew up. A family stayed whole. And one nurse learned that sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find out who you really are. Have you ever faced a moment where doing the right thing meant breaking the rules? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes courage and compassion should guide our choices. Because sometimes, the most important thing you can do is choose to be human. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story.